Well, each week, a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week, sounding off on the new career and talent czar and her tall task. Indy adds another Nonstop, and the movie Columbus debuts in Indiana. Our insiders this week are Fagery Baker Daniels partner Murray Clark. Also, Stand for Children Indiana Executive Director Justin Ohlmiller and Leadership Indianapolis CEO Christina Hale. And welcome one and all to the Insiders. We'll start off with a big issue in Indiana, and that's talent, Christina. And Blair Milo, the former LaPorte mayor, your neck of the woods. You're both originally from Northwest Indiana there. But as you look at this new role, and it's a cabinet level position focused on career connections and talent, I think the title is reflective of kind of a focus on the whole talent issue.
It is, and Blair's very future focused as an executive, an elected woman executive. We don't have many of those in our state. She's ready. She's a naval officer. I think she's already hit the ground running. And
what do you think about the size of the challenge? She talked about it, and it's complex, a lot of moving parts. You've got urban areas and rural areas with different demands and those types of things. But in terms of the task, I think the number is 1 million jobs that will need to be filled in the next number of years. How big a task does she have?
It's massive, and it's got to be both high tech and high touch. So it's interacting with people, human beings in real time, but also ensuring that there's connectivity between jobs, openings, employers, and those individuals wherever they are throughout our state.
Yeah, Murray, as you look at workforce development in the state and talent attraction, one of the big criticisms is there hasn't been an alignment between, the available jobs, the private sector, and those in the workforce. Do you see that changing?
Well, I do, and you talk about her challenge. The silver tsunami, she likes to say, is fast approaching. What this means to me, I think, is that they've taken an innovative approach in terms of not just state personnel, but workforce policy generally. And Blair, elected mayor of LaPorte at age 28, 6 years ago, a naval record, working in Mideast, Pentagon. She's all about looking to the future. I agree with you, Christina, and she'll be a dynamic person. And this is disruptive, right? I mean, they're going to have to ruffle some feathers and do things differently.
Yeah. She's not afraid to get those silver foxes out of their chair and exercising either. So
that's good. We were talking also, Justin, just in terms of the urban and the rural situation. IPS, Indianapolis Public Schools, is really embracing this whole idea of
absolutely. And one of the disconnects has been K-12 not being part of that strategy with the workforce. That's changing in a lot of ways. I think due to the governor's leadership, but also the leadership of Dr. in the IPS schools. What you're seeing now is possible career academies opening next year if the IPS board supports it September 18th. These are programs that are designed around growth sectors in Indianapolis and central Indiana, and so you could have young people trained and ready to go either through a four-year institution or potentially walk into a job with certifications ready to fill out some of those jobs that are going to be open in the future.
What's been the biggest obstacle? Because that kind of approach seems to be a pretty smart way to do things. What's been the biggest obstacle to progress in this regard, to that alignment of jobs? And
I think it's just you have different sectors and good leadership, but just not moving in the same direction. And so I think you're seeing some alignment with Blair's role. I think the governor stepped up big time on both CTE in our high schools as well as workforce. And so I think you're going to start to see that alignment with the governor's office and local education officials.
I wonder if there will be a revival of the Career Council. Certainly the regional cities and other initiatives in recent years could play a part.
A lot of jobs continue to come into the state, or news of expansions. General Motors, 2 suppliers actually in Allen County announcing plans to expand, invest about $15 million and add several hundred jobs. As you look at that, and again, back to the whole issue, if you don't have the talent, if you don't have the jobs, it'd be tough to fill these, but Indiana continues to attract investment. We
have more people working in Indiana than ever before, but we have so many employers saying, I can't hire anybody because I can't get someone to pass a drug test. For us here in Indiana, per capita income's been on the decline since 1962. Household income since the early 2000s. It's all about the wages that are coming in.
That's huge issue.
I do think there's some economic development mojo up there in Allen County, though, and you look at what Greater Fort Wayne Inc. has done, more of a regional approach. Eric Doden, the former president of IEDC, is kind of a dynamic leader. He's got a dynamic board of business leaders in the community, high-level elected officials in that area. So I think a lot of good things happening in Fort Wayne and Allen County.
Yeah, a lot happening in traditional manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, but also kind of the future in manufacturing. Justin, CUMMINS came out this week really showing off technology and the future technology and alternative vehicles and electric vehicles in that big heavy-duty truck market. They're making a big bet on that.
Huge bet, and I think it's interesting here in red state Indiana, where you got the national narrative talking about bringing back these old jobs from factories that have maybe left. Here you have CUMMINS leading the way on clean energy, and actually not just leading the way, but like doubling down and saying this is a business strategy, the critical business strategy here. So I think it's frankly where the jobs and investments are going, and I think it's great that companies like CUMMINS in Indiana are leading the way.
In terms of going, coming, and going connectivity, Indianapolis International Airport announced another nonstop flight, this one to a tech destination. Now it's a seasonal flight, Southwest offering to Austin, Texas, yet another Austin nonstop. But Christine, as you look at the airport, now I think it's 47 nonstops. A few years ago, it was much less than that. And the business community has been clamoring for years for more nonstops. It sounds like we're finally getting that momentum.
I think we're starting little by little. We're hearing that there are others in the works as well that could be announced soon. It's so important, when we think about our aging infrastructure in terms of rail, roads, we've got to connect our research centers, our producers of intellectual capital to other parts in the world. And it can't just be Chicago. It's got to be coast. It's got to be innovative hubs like Austin, Texas. It's exciting.
Well, this is a result of intentional leadership, and one of the lessons we should learn is it doesn't happen overnight. It takes some resolute leadership, and we've had it.
But how about, Murray, in your view, the impact of the airport itself, that physical structure, which continues to get accolades from around the globe for being one of the top airports around, and the impact that that's having on nonstop flights and other things?
Well, I mean, it's an award. We've talked about this before. It's an award-winning airport. What do they say? You have one chance to make a first impression, and when you have visitors to this city, I mean, they love our airport. It's the first.
And let's just connect that airport to our downtown soon too.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I think maybe Murray's right in that regard. We had an airport that was antiquated. You almost taxi in from Ohio almost when you landed. I mean, it was a long way. And I think the leadership of Mayor Peterson, the continued leadership and direction of advancing that airport through Mayor Ballard, again, intentional leadership through multiple parties, multiple leaders.
Yeah. One of the big stories that has been out there in Indiana for the last number of weeks is the closure, the demise, if you will, of MARSH stores around the state of Indiana. Some news this week on 11 of those former Indiana MARSH supermarket locations getting new names. Needler's Fresh Market, that brand will be on some of those stores. And Christina, we were talking off camera about that, and you made the point about access to food, and beyond the whole MARSH, what the locations will be, what they'll be called, but is that access to food?
Yeah, aside from the business of food, 1 in 5 children in Indiana suffer from food insecurity today. This is a rural problem, it's an urban problem, so ensuring that people aren't just trying to feed their kids on Snickers bars from the gas station, that they have access to wholesome food, to nutrition, and can bring it back home is really important.
Play a role in that as well. Also a movie debut. You don't get many movies shot in Indiana. I know there are efforts to change that now, but the movie Columbus is premiering with debut this weekend in Indiana. I know in Indianapolis and Columbus, among other places. Murray, as you look at this movie, and it really does showcase the architecture in Columbus and gives Indiana a little hit there. Your thought on the impact that this movie might have?
I just learned about the movie and I looked at the trailer, and it is about the architecture, and of course Columbus being what they call the Midwestern Mecca of architecture. What we're seeing, I think, in Columbus is kind of a reawakening, and an example of that is this exhibit Columbus that's going on. I think it started a few days ago. It'll go through about Thanksgiving. I'd encourage people to look at the website and go down and visit. But it's a celebration of the past history of architecture in Columbus. It's looking forward. They're giving grants and awards to different architects, and even then going to the high schools to try to get them involved.
Yeah. And you're involved, I know, Christina, on with efforts to get more movie and digital production in the state.
Yeah, we believe that we have to create that creative class of job and support that, certainly from the state level with tax incentives. Visit Indy and Film Indy have really led the way to get that so that we can incent people to do media production here. You know, it breaks my heart that films like The Judge or Fault in Our Stars couldn't be produced here in Indiana when they wanted to be.
Do you sense that changing? I mean, the resistance changing? Do you sense progress in getting some more of that investment or the tax credits or whatever?
I think so. I think our Commissioner for Film, Teresa Sabatine, has helped, and I have heard that the IEDC is going to become more intentional in coming years about cultivating that kind of opportunity. It only brings business to Indiana, so it just makes sense.
Right. Well, with that, we'll put a wrap. Justin, we'll finish that thought next time.
Absolutely.
Justin Oldmiller, Christina Hale, and Murray Clark, thanks one and all.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this.